Good morning, everybody. So this morning, we are very lucky to have a received teaching from the His Holiness Dalai Lama. All the teachings we received today is a very important and very precious. At the beginning, His Holiness told the Russian Mongolian student about his own history in Tibet, 1959. In 1959, His Holiness received the Geshe's degree, Geshe Larampa. At that time, there were so many Geshes who hold highest Geshe degree. The Geshes come from Mongolia. Historically, now Mongolia divided into three parts. One is right now part of China. One is independent country. So one is still under the Russia. So when he received the Geshe degree, so many Geshe debate with him. There were most of them from Mongolia. Particularly, there was a Geshe named Ngödruk Tsoknyi. He was Mongolian. He was one of the very important. He's similar as a teacher, similar as a tutor for His Holiness Dalai Lama. Through Geshe Ngödruk Tsoknyi, the Mongolian Geshe, His Holiness got serious interest about emptiness. Second, that His Holiness explained the importance of relationship between Tibetan and Mongolia. So mainly they have a very important connection based on religion, based on Dharma. But during the communist control in Russia, there were so many problems. And that time, there was a Lama who got punishment as a, I think we can say, actually he was charged for murder. No, he was charged for, say, killed because he had so many disciples. So before he was killed by the communist army, so he brought into the particular area for kill. And that time, the Lama, the Geshe said, could you please give me a moment to do prayers? Then the communist army said, yes, you can have a time for your prayers. That's why I send you the copy in the groups. The prayer come from Guru Puja by Penja Lozan Chögyен, page number 99. Is a very important prayers. Pray for taking suffering, giving happiness, taking all kinds of suffering and problem onto them and sharing their happiness to all sentient beings. Okay, so we all read together in English, also Chinese. Therefore, compassionate, ennobling, impeccable gurus inspire us that all the negativity, obstacles, sufferings of wandering beings or mother repeat upon us right now, and that we may impart our happiness and positive force to others, and thereby secure all wonder in bills every 3 times. So there's one mistake in this translation. Inspire us. No, it's inspire me. Me. Then the second, there's one mistake. Repent upon me, not us. Repent upon me right now. So the Geshe chant these verses. Then he asked the army, now I'm ready to die. You can kill me. So before he passed away, he do the practice of giving and taking and giving. So this is His Holiness usually tell during the teachings. So if you are very genuine practitioner, then you should not be scared. So moment of the death. Also, you should not have any negative thoughts when you are in very dangerous situation. Then second, the people who follow religion, there's 2 groups. One like Christian, Hindu, Muslim, they believe in God. They fully trust in God, and through praying, through chanting, then they tend their mind. So we follow Buddha teachings. We turn our mind through transformation, through study, through meditation, not only through chanting and prayers. So this teaching is very important as a Buddhist. Of course, every day, so we have to do a lot of recitation and chanting and prostration. We not just only focus these, religious activities, the religious chanting and recitation. At the meantime, we really need to transform our mind. We need to do a lot of study to know how to practice Dharma. Then the third point, His Holiness mentioned in the ancient time in India, there were 2 kind of flourishing Dharma. One is the earlier path, which is Buddhism, flourish based on the Pali language, Pali tradition. The later parts of the Buddha time, then Buddhism flourish based on the Sanskrit. Also, Buddha Shakyamuni express the teaching based on the Sanskrit tradition. Therefore, the Tibetan Buddhist, the Mongolian Buddhist, we follow the Mahayan teaching. We follow the Nalanda tradition or the Sanskrit tradition. So what is the true difference tradition. One follow the Pali tradition, another follow the Sanskrit tradition, particularly the Nalanda tradition. Based on the Nalanda tradition, the Sanskrit tradition, all the Buddha teaching we practice, we follow, must based on reasoning and logics. Whatever we believe, whatever we practice, must establish based on reasoning and logics. So this point is also very important for us. So we believe in next life, previous life, karma, triple gem, becoming Buddha. We believe all the belief system which is we have, we must establish based on logics and reasoning. Without establishing based on reasoning and logics, whatever we believe, we just believe. We don't have the solid evidence. Therefore, so we have to study about the teaching. So we have to do a lot of analysis, a lot of investigation about the Buddha teaching. Then finally, then you can accept, you can follow the Buddha teaching, because we follow the Nalanda tradition and Sanskrit tradition. Then how flourish Buddha teaching to Mongolia and in part of many parts of Russia? Because Buddha lifetime, Buddha told to the many disciples, in the future, my dharma flourish north to north, north to north. The first north referred to the northern to northern, or you can say north, Tibet. Then north to north. The second northern is the part of Mongolia. So Buddha already explained the Buddha teaching will flourish to Tibet, from Tibet, then flourish to Mongolia, then all parts of Russia. Then His Holiness gave a long advice for the Mongolian disciples, all the Mongolian devotees. We Buddhists, we seriously have to study Dharma. When we study Dharma, there are most important 5 treatises. All the Buddha teachings, all the Indian Buddhist master teachings include into 5 treatises. First, the Pramana, Vadika is explained the mind and the mental system, all the logics and reasoning. Second, the Prajna Paramita teachings. The Prajna Paramita teaching explained, teach us all the paths, all the steps, how we achieve liberation, how we achieve Buddhahood, how we achieve, the excellent human life. Second, the third treatise is the Madhyamaka teaching about emptiness. Then the next is the Abhidharma. The fifth was the Pratimokkha, what called? So first one mainly about the Vinaya Sutra. So all the Buddha teaching include into 5 treatises: Pramana, Prajna Paramita, Madhyamaka teaching, Abhidharma, Vinaya teachings, 5 treatises. Among the 5 treatises, the Pramana teaching is very important to know that about the minds, the positive minds, negative minds, also the valid mind, non the valid minds, also all the logics and reasonings. The Parjanamar Parama teaching is very important teaching to learn about all the steps about the meditation, all the steps how to achieve liberation. Then the Abhidharma has a four chapters. Among the four, the third chapter is chapter about the universe. The universe. So when you open the third chapter, it explained how the system of the universe, sun and moon, the distance between the earth to the moon, earth to the sun. So a lot of explanation. All the explanation, the Indian master explained based on the Hindu tradition. Therefore, the fourth chapter is in this day, most of the topic is not that relevance, but rest of the chapters are very important. Then the Madhyamaka. So the Madhyamaka teaching is very, very important teachings because so all the sufferings we have, particularly all the mental sufferings we have, those are originated by ignorance, self-grasping. Without control, without realize the self-grasping, we cannot control our mental sufferings, our positive or negative karmas, and samsara. So therefore, in order to realize emptiness, the Madhyamaka teaching is very important, particularly the entering into middle way and the commentary on the middle way. So in the Parjanamar Paramita teachings, actually introduce us how we should follow the Buddha teachings. In order to practice the teaching, the path, first we must realize the true truth, the conventional truths, the ultimate truths. The conventional truths include all the karmic causal and effect. Then ultimate truths. If we have deep understanding about the true truths, which is conventional truths and ultimate truths, then we will have the perfect understanding about the Four Noble Truths. When we have a perfect understanding about the true truths, then Four Noble Truths, then we can believe into Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Without having the knowledge about the true truths and the Four Noble Truths, then there's a not solid conviction about Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. So be Buddhist or non-Buddhist, differentiate based on taking refuge into Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. So most of us, we consider I'm Buddhist. How and when we became Buddhist? Many of us became Buddhist, consider I'm Buddhist because my parents are Buddhist. Some of you say, I'm become Buddhist. I met a Rinpoche, I met a famous Lama. Since I follow Buddhism, I'm Buddhist. Those are not good reason. Parent Buddhist doesn't mean you are Buddhist. Parent can be Buddhist, you can be Hindu, you can be Muslim, you can be Christian, you can be free thinker. Parent can be totally Muslim, Hindu, Christian, Jewish, free thinker. Still you can be Buddhist if you take refuge into Buddha as a teacher, Dharma as a actual protection, Sangha as a component to follow the paths. In order to take refuge into Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, we must know the definition, the meaning of the Buddha, then Dharma, the Sangha. Without having knowledge about Four Noble Truths, we really cannot have a solid belief into Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. Without having knowledge about two truths, we cannot have a perfect knowledge about the Four Noble Truths. This is how the Buddhism, established. Then when His Holiness talk about the middle, entering into middle way and the Wood commentary. Also, I send you the picture of the verses. The chapter number 6, the verses number 33, so 34 to 38. Chapter number 6, the verses 34 and 38. Very good. Let me see. Okay, 34, right? If the intrinsic characteristic of things were to arise dependently, thing would come to be destroyed by denying it. Emptiness would then be cause for destruction of things, but this is illogical. So no real existent entity existence. So His Holiness every day, so after he finish his daily practice, then most likely he go walk around the residence or he goes for morning walkings. That time, usually he recite these verses. The 34 is telling none of the phenomena can be real intrinsic existence. If this is the case, then the emptiness can be destroyed. The true nature. So, first sentence is actually reject the truly existent phenomena. Then 35. Thus, when such phenomena are analyzed, when we analyze any phenomena, when such phenomena are analyzed, nothing is found as their nature apart from suchness. So, the conventional truth of the everyday world should not be subject to thoroughly analysis. So when we analyze any phenomena, particularly the conventional phenomena, then you cannot really found the conventional phenomena exists from its own side. For example, books. This is a book. So we have to accept, everybody accepts this is a book. So when you analyze what is book, where's the book? Yes, the book is my hand. So I open one page. Is this a book? No, this is a cover of the book. If you analyze page by page, you cannot find there's a book. That means this is very clear logics, clear indication. None of the phenomena exists inherently. It has a real entity existence. That means there's a book is there. We're not going to denying book. Yes, there's a book. The book is not exist, established, inherent, real entity existence. That means how we should analyze about the phenomena. 35. Then 36. Also, based on analyzing, then there's not self-arising, not arising from other, not arising from both. So it's denying the truly existent phenomena. Then 37 and 38. Then when we analyze the phenomena, yes, I know I cannot really found the phenomena from their parts. For example, book. That means how the book is exist, how the book is established. Then 37, 38, the verses is the introduce us how we establish phenomena, how phenomena exists. Particularly the sentence number 38. 38. Likewise, although all things are empty, empty doesn't mean nothingness, empty of inherent existence, right? They do arise from emptiness in the reverse way. Since no inherent nature exists in either of the two truths, phenomena are neither eternal nor nihilations. That means how things arise from emptiness. When we say, when we hear everything arises from emptiness, you should not think, the sun rising from eastern direction. That means all phenomena exist, established within the emptiness. Therefore, you must remember all the verses from Mula Madhyamaka Karika. Emptiness is possible, everything is possible. Emptiness impossible, nothing impossible. Mean everything established exists within the emptiness. So Hisunis versus this one. Then Hisunis explain, as usual, why it is so important to realize emptiness. Why? Why I need to know emptiness? Whether you follow religion, whether you are free thinker, you reject religion, you are total against religion, we must accept. We have problems, we have our sufferings. All the problems and suffering which we have, it is not, arise causeless. Causeless. Nothing can be arise from causeless. The problems and the suffering which we have, it is not created by, like supreme being, like a God, like Allah, Bhagavan. If there's such as one powerful person which is creates everything, then the powerful being or the God, the Allah, the Bhagavan, must change the suffering. They must eliminate all the problem and suffering which we don't want. They also don't want. Therefore, it is not logical to believe in God. It is not logical, so all the sufferings and problem arise from or created by, like God. So we know the suffering I have, you cannot deny. We know we have a problems, we cannot deny. Also, we know every sentient beings seeking happiness, always wish to be happy, always searching happiness. The happiness also cannot come from causeless, cannot be created by like a creator. There must be a cause of the sufferings. There must be a cause of the happiness. Then when we study about causes and condition of sufferings, there are so many causes and conditions to arise suffering. The main cause is ignorance. Ignorance is the king of the sufferings. Ignorance is the principal cause to arise all sufferings. Therefore, we need to get rid of the ignorance. We need to control. We need to eliminate the root of the suffering. Then we can eliminate all kinds of suffering. How we can eliminate? Through realizing emptiness. Therefore, it's very important to realize emptiness. If you practice only emptiness, then the practice of emptiness, not unique practice for the Mahayan who follow Mahayan teaching. The practice of emptiness is the common practice between Hinayan practitioner and Mahayan practitioner. Second, we need to practice the bodhicitta. Bodhicitta. The bodhicitta is opposite the mental state of self-centered attitude. Therefore, Tibetan is called Rang means self. Chenjin means center, self-cherishing attitude. Self-cherishing attitude. Therefore, when we think about ourselves, we always think me, my families, my country, my friends, always me. In deep down, we have very strong self-cherishing, self-centered attitude. The opposite is Tibetan we call Zhen Chenjin. Zhen Chenjin means other self-centered attitude, other cherishing attitude. Second, we have a problems because of the self-centered attitudes or self-cherishing attitude. So we need to eliminate these two, self-grasping, which is ignorance, self-centered attitude. If we practice bodhicitta with the emptiness with the bodhicitta, then we can eliminate the root cause, which is ignorance. Another is self-centered attitudes. Therefore, it's nice advice to practice bodhicitta with the emptiness with the bodhicitta. So here what we learn, we learn studying is so important. Then we know how to practice. When we practice, we must practice only for eliminating sufferings, controlling the root of the samsara, which is ignorance, self-cherishing, self-centered attitude. The opposite is emptiness and bodhicitta. So these are beginning of the teaching. Then he will start with the commentary on the awakening mind, commentary on bodhicitta. So before he start the teaching, then he will introduce us the two lineages. The lineages of the profound teaching, the lineage of the extensive teachings. Extensive teaching, like all the bodhicitta, so all the practices, we call extensive. Because many different kinds of practices, all the practices are different. Profound, about emptiness, the teaching about emptiness is we call, the profound teaching. Because there are so many phenomena. All phenomena has a different features, different characteristics. But when you think about emptiness, there's no difference in emptiness between human being and non-human being. There's no differences between emptiness of books and pillar. When you look at the emptiness, you can see some exact, like same kind of nature, same kind of, features. Therefore, Nagarjuna was very important master to preserve the profound teachings. Therefore, he composed the 5 treatises. Among the 5, please, all of you must remember, among the 5 treatises, the Mula Madhyamaka Karika is the root teaching. Then rest of the 4 or 5, sometimes they say 6 treatises, sometimes say 5. When we say 5, then you no need to count the precious garland. When you say 6 treatises composed by Nagarjuna, then you need to add the precious garland teachings. The 5 or 6 treatises by Nagarjuna, the most important one, the Mula Madhyamaka Karika. From the Mula Madhyamaka Karika, the first sentence are very important, which is, I think many of you already know, who are totally new. Mula Madhyamaka Karika, independent origination. There are no ceasing, no arising, no annihilation, no permanence, no coming, no going, no separateness, and no sameness. I prostrate to the consumer Buddha, the supreme or teacher. Right? Therefore, this sentence is the main kind of root. This is the most important teaching Nagarjuna explained with the rest of the 5 treatises. So all the teaching about emptiness taught by Nagarjuna mainly extend these sentences. So related to the teaching, this commentary on bodhicitta, commentary on the awakening mind by Nagarjuna. So Nagarjuna was a very important teacher who preserved, who carried the profound teachings. Then he should actually start the teachings. So everybody please open your text. So now how long we have to go the class? Until now is 2.
Ishila, we can have up to 3:30.
3:30.
Yes.
Okay. So Among the teachings, the first you can see is a very common when you look at the, the Dharma books, Dharma teach in Tibetan language, translated into Tibetan from Sanskrit, from Pali, from Chinese. At the beginning of the text, always mention the name. Therefore, here in Sanskrit title, Bodhicitta Vivana. Tibetan, I think a bit different. Bodhicitta Vivara Nama. Nama means prostration. Bodhicitta Vivana Nama. Vivarnana. Tibetan, you can say Changchup Semgi Delwa. Changchup means Buddhahood or Bodhi or liberation. Changchup. Sem means the mind towards bodhicitta. Ki is the, the conjoined word. Then Deva is the commentary. Homage to the glorious Vajrasattva. So this also, this sentence is composed by Nagarjuna. Vajrasattva. So many people has a confused difference between Vajradhara and Vajrasattva. Actually, is same. Vajrasattva, Vajradhara. Homage to glorious Vajrasattva. Because these are the Nagarjuna, which is he going to comment about the text, it is come from the root text of the Guha Samaja. Guha Samaja. So Guha Samaja has a root text. Yamantaka has a root text. Chakra Samaja has a root text. Among the three root texts, the Chakra Samaja root text, the secret root text of the Chakra Samaja, Sangdu Yu mean the secret root text of Chakra Samaja is very important. Lama Tsongkhapa has a lot of commentary on this root text. All the Kagyupa master, particularly Lama Marpa, he went to India, I think, more than 25 times. He relied on more than 100 teachers. Mainly, he studied about the root text of the Chakra Samaja. Therefore, you can see when you open the Tantrayana teaching in Gelugpa tradition, always talking about the 5 stages. Kagyu also 5 stages. Therefore, the root text is come from the root text of the Chakra Samaja. So Guha Samaja. It has been started means is set where the root text of the Guha Samaja. Now, Nagarjuna quoted the words, devoid of all real entities, utterly descending all objects and subjects, such as aggregates, eliminates and sense field, due to sameness of separateness of all phenomena. One's mind is primordially unborn. It is the nature of emptiness. So this is the text, the root text, the main text to explain, do commentary on this text. Then I hope all of you remember in this root text, the second line, utterly discarding all object and subject. This refute refute the concept of emptiness based on Chitta Mantra school. Chitta Mantra school. The third line, such as aggregates, elements, and sense of fields. These refute the concept of self based on the non-Buddhist school. Therefore, this root text refute the concept of self based on the non-Buddhist school concept of the Chitta Mantra school. From the point of view from the non-Buddhist school, they also accept in self. They call Atma. Atma. Therefore, according to the non-Buddhist school, when they study about self and Atma, they study about the 5 aggregates. Then they thought all the 5 aggregates, each of them impermanence. Finally, they believe there must be a self which is totally permanent, totally singleness, totally unity. Therefore, the non-Buddhist school, particularly, I'm talking about Hinduism. From the Hindu point of view, I come from previous life. I will go next life. When I say I'm happy, I'm not happy, the I which is we feel, they thought the I is a permanent, it's a singleness, it doesn't have any parts, it's permanent, it's always there, then unity. So this is the, the feature of the I or self, Atma, according to non-Buddhist school. Therefore, this root text also refute this kind of, concept of I, self, Atma. Then second, among the Buddhist schools, we have 4 schools, right? Vaibhashika, Sutrantika, Chitta Mantra, then Madhyamaka. Among the 4 Buddhist schools, so Shakyamuni also totally refute the concept of self, I, based on the Chitta Mantra school. Then he already reject, from the 2 view from the 2 lower schools. Then how Chitta Mantra believe, accept I, self? How they establish I, self? So also they also study about 5 aggregates. Therefore, when we say I, right now I'm a human being, we are human, or maybe say, this is a dog, I'm a human. How we can differentiate human and dog? We cannot differentiate based on mind. We cannot differentiate based on the emotions. We can differentiate based on the physical body. Therefore, sometimes we establish person as a based on body. And Chitta Mantra thought the body cannot be I, cannot be person, cannot be being. Then among the 5 aggregates, finally Chitta Mantra pinpoint the self to the consciousness. The consciousness, the mind, the all basis mind. Ali Vigyan, the all basis mind. Also, Buddha refute in the Tantrayana teaching, there is no such as mind which is being named Ali Vigyan we name all basis mind. There's no such that kind of mind. Therefore, this sentence establish emptiness based on Pasangika school and refute the self based on the non-Buddhist school, based on the Chitta mantra. Right? Now, rest of the text refute the non-Buddhist school concept of I, refute concept of I from Chitta mantra school, and establish emptiness. Also refuse, the emptiness view from the Chitta mantra school. Finally, Buddha Shakyamuni established the emptiness based on the Pasangika. But Buddha lifetime, there wasn't such a Pasangika, but Buddha finally established, the final kind of meaning of emptiness. Therefore, this text, you can think about, three parts: rejecting notion of I from the non-Buddhist school, notion of I, Chitta mantra school, then establish emptiness. So when we divide the words, so after the root text, so we all read together slowly is very important. Just as the blessed Buddhas and the great Bodhisattva have generated the mind of great awakening, I too shall, from now till I arrive at the heart of the awakening, generate awakening mind in order that I may save those who are not saved, free those who are not free, relieve those who are not relieved, and have thoroughly transcended sorrow, those who have not thoroughly transcended sorrow. First sentence you can see, just as the blessed Buddhas and the great Bodhisattvas have generated the mind of great awakening. First, we always must remember all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, they always practice bodhicitta, they generated bodhicitta. For what? Buddha, all the Buddhas, before they became Buddha, they were same as us. They have a lot of sufferings and problem. Then all the Buddhas, before they become Buddhas, they realize self-grasping, self-centered attitudes are the root to cause sufferings. In order to control the root of sufferings, then they realize emptiness, practice bodhicitta, then become Buddha. The Bodhisattva who are on the path to Buddhahood, they also have been practicing bodhicitta, emptiness, in order to eliminate the root of the samsara, which is self-grasping, self-centered attitudes or self-cherishing attitudes. Then we must think, yes, Buddha Shakyamuni, he became Buddha because practicing bodhicitta, realized emptiness. Then we must think, oh, now I know the point. I must generate bodhicitta. So therefore now, I too shall, from now till arrive the heart of the awakening, until I become a Buddha. So why you need to generate bodhicitta? Why I need to generate bodhicitta? Not only my own benefits, not only benefits for my friends and my families, benefits for all sentient beings. How? Therefore, you can see second line. I may save those who are not saved, free those who are not free, relieve those who are not relieved, and helping thoroughly transcendent sorrow. So how to generate bodhicitta? Then the second paragraph, those bodhisattvas who practice by means of the secret mantra after having, right? That means the practitioner, the person who follow tantrayana or mantra teaching, right? Those bodhisattvas who practice by means of the secret mantra, means the tantrayana teaching, the vajrayana path, who practice, the bodhisattva who practice tantrayana path, tantrayana teaching, they can practice after they have a bodhicitta, after having. Therefore, many of us, many of you think, oh, I want to practice Vajrayana, Tantrayana, the secret teaching. That is a very, important teaching. I can become Buddha very fast, very swiftly, very quickly. It's true. But without bodhicitta, you cannot. Without bodhicitta, you can do recitation, you can do all the sadhana, but actually you are not practicing actual tantrayana because you don't have a bodhicitta. Therefore, those bodhisattvas who practice by means of the secret mantra after having generated a waking mind in terms of the conventional aspect in the form of an aspiration. Now he's talking about two bodhicitta, the conventional bodhicitta and ultimate bodhicitta. How we can generate the conventional bodhicitta, the general bodhicitta. Generated a waking mind in terms of its conventional aspect in the form of earned aspiration. Based on aspiration means I want to be Buddha to benefit all sentient. You got very strong aspiration, strong motivation to be Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. That means the conventional bodhicitta we must generate based on aspiration. Aspiration. You don't need to do a lot of analysis. The second, how we can generate, how we can accomplish the ultimate bodhicitta. This next line. Then produce the ultimate awakening mind through force of meditative practice. Shall therefore explain its nature. The conventional bodhicitta we can generate, we can develop based on aspiration. Reflect on suffering or all sentient being, wish them free from suffering. Therefore, I want to be Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. Best aspiration. Ultimate bodhicitta, if you think, I want to realize emptiness, it doesn't matter how much strong aspiration you have to realize emptiness, you cannot realize emptiness. Emptiness must realize through meditation. Analytical meditation, then analytical meditation and meditative state meditations. You need to do a lot of analysis about emptiness. Therefore, ultimate awakening mind through the force of meditative practice. I shall therefore explain its nature, means I will explain the ultimate bodhicitta, which is the mind realize emptiness through direct perception. This is called ultimate bodhicitta. Here, again, most many of you already attend Lamrim class, particularly about the meditation class. Please remember, in order to realize emptiness, actually you don't need deep meditation. But in order to realize thoroughly, precisely, perfectly, then you need meditation. Then remember, we have a karma body and special insight. Shamatha and Vipassana. First, Shamatha, right, the meditative concentration. Then the insight. Through together, then you can realize emptiness. Also, please remember the analogy. The butter lamp must be very bright, must be free from the wind. If the light is very bright, lot of wind, then we cannot see things very clearly. If you have only wisdom, no meditative concentration, then you cannot see emptiness very clearly. If there's no wind, very bright, very stillness there, again, you cannot see the things very clearly. There's no enough bright. So please remember the force of meditative practice shall therefore explain in the nature. So this why Nagarjuna said, two bodhicitta very important. First bodhicitta, you generate through aspiration. Second one, through force of meditation. Therefore, Nagarjuna says, I will explain the ultimate bodhicitta. Then, sentence number 1, bowing to the glorious Vajra holder who embodies the awakening mind. I shall explain there are meditative practice of awakening mind that destroys second existence. So this is the kind of, solution for free from obstacle to compose this text. The second paragraph, the Buddha's maintains the awakening mind to be not obscured by such as conceptions as a consciousness of self, aggregates and so on, is always characterized by emptiness. So this is a very condensed sentence about the rest of the meanings. Then number 3, paragraph number 3, it is with a mind moistened by compassion that you must cultivate awakening mind with the effort. The Buddha who embodied great compassion constantly developed this awakening mind. The paragraph number 3 is explaining the most important cause to generate bodhicitta, which is compassion. Right? Or if our mind moistured by compassion, then we can generate bodhicitta. If the seeds has a moisture, then the seeds can, produce sprout. If the seed doesn't have any moisture, very dry seeds, the seeds cannot produce the sprout. Therefore, we have a mind. All sentient beings, all human beings has a mind. Why is somebody able to generate bodhicitta, someone cannot? Why? You should not think because my previous life. You should not think I am very unlucky person because I cannot generate bodhicitta. You must think I cannot. I try to practice bodhicitta, somehow I cannot. Because we don't have a compassion. We don't have a great compassion. We have compassion. The compassion is very biased compassion. Only have a compassion towards very few people. Only your friends and your family. Within the family, very particular. Therefore, we cannot practice bodhicitta because we don't have a pure compassion, great compassion. The compassion mind which is we have now is very biased. Therefore, we need to practice compassion towards all sentient beings. Then you have a good posture. Then the Buddha awakening mind going to develop. So I always said, many times when we have a class, when we practice compassion, love, tolerance, it's very easy to practice compassion all sentient beings. You can have a compassion, you can be very compassionate for all sentient beings, but not particular person, cannot particular your relatives. This is wrong. Therefore, in order to practice compassion, first you start the compassion within your friend, your family, particularly who always stay with you, who always live you. Have a compassion mind, have a compassion, have a love, have a tolerance, be tolerant. Then same compassion, then you can slowly extend to your other families. Then slowly your friends. Then slowly rest of the people. Then if you starting this way, it's very difficult. If you start practicing compassion, first all sentient beings. Yes, you think I have a compassion all sentient beings. If you look at the individually, you don't have a compassion with anybody. So therefore, this sentence number 4 is telling the most important cause to generate bodhicitta. Therefore, you must cultivate awakening mind with effort. With effort, right? Effort. If you don't put effort, you cannot generate great compassion, then you cannot generate bodhicitta, then you cannot be Buddha. You cannot be Buddha. Effort. Therefore, we practice Buddha teaching, we practice the Dharma. If you follow the Mahayana teaching, want to be Buddha, practice compassion, then bodhicitta. Bodhicitta, compassion can be practiced if you have a good effort. So therefore, we need patience. Then sentence number 4. Sentence number 4 to sentence number 4 all the way to sentence number 21. 4 to 21 is mainly refuting the notion of self based on the non-Buddhist school. Then sentence number 22, then I think we will go next. Since sentence number 2 also started to reject, refute the notion of self based on Chitta-mantra. Also, he refute, self-awareness, self-realizer mind. Also refute the all-basis mind, the all-basis mind. Also refute the particular view from Chitta-mantra. And finally, Nagarjuna established his own view, the Prasangika views. Therefore, what you need to think, this teaching is actually the root text come from Guha Samaja root text. The root text you can divide three parts: establishing emptiness, refuting notion of self from the Buddhist, as Chitamantara, and non-Buddhist. Then next few sentences, it is talking about two practices: practice of conventional bodhicitta, practice of ultimate bodhicitta. Then how we can generate conventional bodhicitta based on aspiration. How we can have ultimate bodhicitta based on meditative. Then slowly, Nagarjuna explained the self refute the self the notion of self based on Buddhist Chitamantara and non-Buddhist school.
Okay, hi Kishila.
Yes.
This morning I listened to Paulina's teaching. He said that there are two ways of realizing emptiness. There are two ways of realizing emptiness directly. One is a subtle way, one is a gross way, not so subtle way. I heard his explanation about the subtle way, but I missed the part when Holiness talk about the gross way. So what is the gross way of realizing emptiness?
I think which is you mean, His Holiness explain the gross and subtle related to the question, right?
Mm-hmm.
Question 3. So, okay, I will go through all the questions. The first question somebody asked, is there a contradiction between how to practice bodhicitta based on 7 cause and effect and exchanging 7 others? Then he's only answer, there's no any contradiction, but practicing generating bodhicitta based on 7 cause and effect is a very kind of slow practice. Also, you need to do a lot of study. Also, you need to think long time, because among the 7 cause, first recognizing all sentient beings as our dearest mother. In order to recognize all sentient beings as our dearest mother, then also we need to reflect about our previous life. Previous life, we need to think. And also it's a very slow process. It's mainly for the people who don't have a very advanced kind of knowledge. The second, the generating bodhicitta based on exchanging 7 other is very simple. You no need to think all sentient being as your mother. Also, you no need to think about your previous life or previous life, many lifetime. Simple, you need to think all sentient beings equally want happiness, don't want sufferings. As me, I don't want sufferings. All sentient beings also don't want any suffering. I always want happiness. All sentient beings always want happiness. Therefore, we are equal to be happy. We are equal to be not suffered. Then, why I'm happy? How I all sentient make happy? Then just reflect on the advantage and disadvantage. Advantage of practicing other-centered attitudes, or reflect, contemplate the benefits of other-centered attitudes. Reflect on the disadvantage of the self-centered attitude or self-cherishing attitudes. And this, self-centered attitudes is the root cause to suffering. Other self-attitude is the root cause to arouse happiness. Then just, exchange, the mental attitude. I cannot exchange, me and other, our mental attitude. Until now, we always hold self-centered attitudes very important. Other centered attitude we totally ignore, we totally, don't care. Since today you switch the true attitude, mental attitude, you always think other centered attitudes, other cherishing attitude. You totally ignore, self-cherishing attitude. This is a very simple way how to practice bodhicitta. The second, somebody asked question, the nature of the mind is very clear. Right? The truth nature of the mind is very clear. Then, what is the root of the ignorance? Ignorance. Related to this question, then His Holiness give a long explanation about the clear light minds. The ignorance is a gross mind, gross minds. There's another mind also which is the root cause of the samsara, which is not realized, the subtle clear light mind. So we are in samsara because we're not able to recognize the subtle clear light mind. When you realize subtle clear light mind, then you can be free from suffering. So His Holiness explained, yes, actually ignorance is the cause, but there's another, serious cause of the samsara than the ignorance, which is we're not realizing the clear light mind is the root cause of samsara. Then how we can realize the clear light mind? Then His Holiness talk about, the 80 negative thoughts, 80 liberation thoughts. Then there's a 3 appearance of red appearance, white appearance, red appearance, then black appearance. So when we on the process of dying, so almost our gross mind is totally stopped to function, cannot function. All the gross mind is totally finished. But still the mind is going to more subtle or more thinner. And somehow in our mind, you can, for you appear everything is a whiteness. Everything is look like very bright, look milky colors, whiteness. How this kind of appearances we have? Because you remember the 2 dots, white and red dots. The white dots come from father, the dots come from mother. The subtle mind in between. When the red dots break, then suddenly we have a white appearance. When the red dots, break is apart, then we have a red appearances. Then finally, everything look like total darkness. That means we are entering into subtlest mind. Through this practice, then you will realize the subtlest mind and clear light mind. Realizing clear light mind is the root to the nirvana. Not realizing the subtle mind, the clear light mind is the root to the samsara. For example, you need to go to, let's say, pure land. There's a route to go, there's a path to go to pure land. But there's a two paths. One is like a white, one is yellow color. You really don't know which one is the real path to go to pure land. So not realizing, not understand the real path, then you go to samsara. When you realize the truth path, then you go to, like pure land. This is the second. Third question, which is you ask the question. Somebody asks, what is the differences between the ultimate bodhicitta, then Mahamudra, Chakchen, then Dzogchen? In the Nyingma tradition, they always talk about Dzogchen. They don't talk much about emptiness. In the Kagyupa tradition, they always talk about Chakchen, Mahamudra, not much emptiness. In Gelugpa tradition, they always talk about emptiness, not much about Mahamudra and Dzogchen and Chakchen. It doesn't mean Gelugpa, they don't practice Mahamudra, don't practice Dzogchen, don't practice emptiness. Also, all the Kagyupa, Nyingma master, they talk about Dzogchen and Chakchen, also they practice emptiness. Therefore, His Holiness says, if you really know the meaning of Mahamudra, Dzogchen, ultimate truth, then it looks like it's sameness, it's just one. But the ultimate truth, ultimate bodhicitta, so ultimate bodhicitta is not just mind which realizes emptiness, no. The ultimate bodhicitta is the mind which is realizes emptiness directly, without perception, directly, without mental image, ultimate bodhicitta. Then ultimate bodhicitta can be two kinds. One is the gross ultimate bodhicitta, which is the mind, the gross mind, which is realized emptiness, we can call, the gross mind, which is realized emptiness directly, we can ultimate bodhicitta, but it's a gross mind. Then, when the clear light mind, the subtlest mind realizes emptiness directly, also we name ultimate bodhicitta. Therefore, bodhicitta, ultimate emptiness can be realized by two kinds of mind. One is the gross mind, one is the subtlest mind. So the subtlest mind realizes emptiness, is the ultimate bodhicitta, is also Mahamudra, is also Dzogchen. So make sure you really, unmistakably, you need to know the meaning of Dzogchen and Chakchen. Make sure you realize the clear-light mind, then the clear-light mind realizes emptiness. Then ultimate bodhicitta. I said that ultimate bodhicitta, that Mahamudra, Dzogchen are same, right? His Holiness didn't say there's a two ways to realize emptiness. There's a two different mind can be realized emptiness. One is gross, one is subtle. Yes, and then next question number 4. Somebody asked, in the ancient time, there wasn't technology to study about brain. So how Buddhism, study about, know about the brains? Then His Holiness says, yes, you're true. In the future, there wasn't like technology, like a mechanic to check your brain. But it's based on the Buddha teaching. There's a Sutrayana teaching, Tantrayana teaching. On any of the Sutrayana teaching, You never talk about the brains. You never talk about the subtle minds. Then within the Tantrayana, there's a 4 kind of Tantrayana teaching, right? Perform, and then action, then yoga, then there is highest Tantrayana. So within the highest Tantrayana teaching, then they talk about all the chakra and channel and energy, and particularly the subtlest mind. Therefore, in the Tantrayana teaching, talking about even though your heart, your brain is totally stopped, there's no any blood circulation in your brain come from your heart, because your heart totally stop function. Heart function stop, the brain function stop. Still, many person, the body still remain fresh for many days. And recently, I think in Taiwan, one of the Geshe, I think he remains in the meditation state for, I think, more than 22 days. So he's explaining how we can know, the brain function, the function of the subtle mind. Then somebody asked question, we talk about impermanence. What is the meaning of the impermanence? Is the meaning, the definition of the impermanence is the thing changing like a minute by minute, is based on the minute changing or something else? Then here I think we all must remember there's a gross impermanence. The gross impermanence exists based on subtle impermanence. For example, one day passed, yesterday passed. How yesterday passed? Based on 24 hours. 24 hours depend on 1 hour. There's no 1 hour, no 24 hours. 1 hour pass based on 60 seconds, right? 60 seconds pass based on 60 minutes. Then 1 minute pass change based on milliminute. The milliminute change based on the, I think, nanominutes. Therefore, the impermanence changing momentarily, we're not just talking about changing moment like 1 minute, 2 minutes. It's a very, very, very subtle concept moment. If there is no subtle changing, then there cannot be gross changing. So the meaning, the definition of impermanence is all the conditioned phenomena changing in the nano, I think, minute levels. Then somebody asked question, which is, we always think about. When we have a lot of difficulties, like family problems, lot of difficulties within the families, individual problem, how we can overcome when we have a problem? This is a very common question. Therefore, many Buddhists, usually, we do a lot of recitation, we do a lot of chanting, we do a lot of meditation, we do a lot of study, we talk about so many wonderful things, but when actual problem come, the physical problems, mental problems, family problems, relationship problems, economic problems, health problems, when actually problems come, then we are totally forgot. I am Buddhist. You become just ordinary person who doesn't have any dharma knowledge. Therefore, if you consider you are Buddhist, if you have a dharma knowledge, if you believe in Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, if you believe in previous and next life, when problem comes, any problems, economic problems, environment problems, relationship problems, family problems, health problems. This is the right time, most crucial time to apply your Dharma knowledge. Otherwise, I told you many times, you have a big, bag size of the bag of medicine. You have a big bag full of medicine. Usually you are saying, I have a headache medicine, I have an eyes medicine, I have a stomach, I have all kinds of medicines for all disease. When you have a headache, you never open your bag. You just complain, oh, I have a headache, what do I do? You've forgotten, you have a big bag full of medicine. In the bag, there are so many medicine for your headache. So when you have a financial problems, open the Dharma bags, apply the Dharma. Should not take seriously about the financial problem, health problems, any problem issue. Therefore, somebody asks, how we can overcome when we face problems. Therefore, he should say, first we think, whole world is impermanent, is changing. So many people dying every day, every hours. Therefore, my relative will die, I will die, my parent will die, because everybody like this way. And also particularly, he's not saying, so always remember, thing changing momentarily. Nothing can be permanent. So this is very important answer, also very important advice. Please remember Dharma, all the teachings, all the Dharma knowledge you have when you have problems. When you are totally free from suffering, you're totally happy, then that moment you know the Dharma. When you are no sick, you don't need medicine. When you're sick, you need medicine, you have to take the medicine when you are sick. So we are forgotten. When we are sick, you totally forgot, all the Dharma practice, all the Dharma knowledge. Then you become just ordinary being who doesn't have any Dharma knowledge. Then the last question somebody asked, how to describe, how to explain the problem. This day there's a problem in Europe between the extremes Muslim and the European, some of European country. So because the person actually was saying the Muslim has a right to raise up their voice. There's a human rights. Look like the European totally controlling, look like the human rights. Actually, he was asking this of course question. Then he should answer. Yes, some of the very extreme, like the terrorists killed few people. We must accept, we must know they killed those people. But we should not blame all Muslims are bad. We should not blame, the Islam is bad. So we should not generalize with particular. So this also, I think, he should an answer to the person, but it's very important advice for us. For example, when we see, let's say within your family, when you see somebody has a little problems, little mistake, we always blame. My sister no good, my brother no good, my father no good, my mother no good, my relatives no good, my colleague no good. So therefore, when you see little problem, you should not totally blame the person is very bad. Also, same way, when we see little good things, we should not say, oh, my mother's, my sister, my brother, my colleague, my friends are so good. Therefore, we must say, this part is bad, is no good. This part is very good. Please continue. Therefore, we should criticize the people who killed those people. Those people who killed those people, they are not good. They are not good Muslim. We should not say, Muslims are no good. So this is answered by His Holiness today. Okay, next question, please.
Geshe-la, questions from Pik Fong. Dear Geshe-la, please help to explain further for bodhicitta by explorations. Thank you.
I'll give you a very simple example. You're walking in the mountain. You don't have a water. Then suddenly you saw someone is, just lay down on the roadside because, exhausting their energy, lacking of water. So the person was totally suffered on the roadside because he or she needs water due to lacking or insufficient water. He has this problem. That moment, what are you going to think? Yes, as a human being, when you see, you feel so sorry, you have a compassion. Suddenly your compassion arises. That time, then you really wished, I get a water. I need to get water to save this person because this person have to be saved. How you can save? If I have a water, then I can save. That time you have a strong mind, strong aspiration to get a water. Right? Get a water. The water actually can save the person. In order to get a water, what you need? You need a container. You need a thing to hold the water. Therefore, when you think of suffer beings, you must realize, this person has a problem. I have a problems. I wish I can be free from problems. I wish those people, those sentient beings, free from suffering. In this moment, you don't have anything. You don't have a water to, save the person. This time you don't have any ability. You don't have any potential. You don't have a kind of things to save all sentient beings free from suffering. And what you should think, you need to think, if I become a Buddha, then I can give a teaching. I can teach them how free from suffering, how free from ignorance, how free from attachment. Giving teaching, you're giving water to the person who are sick on the roadside. In order to give a water, in order to bring water to the person, you need a container. The Buddhahood, becoming Buddha is look like having a container. So aspiration means you always wish to be Buddha, to benefit all sentient beings. As you aspire, yourself to be Buddha, become Buddha, to benefit all sentient beings, not to benefit yourself. If you think I want to benefit all sentient beings, you are already included within the all sentient beings. Therefore, we call it aspiration. So you must remember, you are walking on the mountain, then you are in the samsara. Someone, lay down on the roadside because lacking of water, lacking of no knowledge, how to free from suffering, how to control all the negative thoughts, how to control ignorance. This moment, you cannot teach them. Therefore, you need to get water. Water look like giving teachings. then container is like becoming Buddha. Remember this analogy. The person lie down on the roadside. You are walking in the mountain. You are in samsara. The person also in the samsara. So person has a lot of problems. You know he has a problem, but you don't know how to overcome the problems. If you teach the person how to overcome problem, then the person can be overcome from problems. This moment you don't have ability to teach Dharma. So give water. So container, water, mountain, you, and the person who own the, lay down on the roadside who are not enough water. Thank you. Next question, please.
Sheila, it's been a long day for you. Do you want to end now or to continue?
Is there any question?
There's one more question from Wei Cheng.
Okay, I take one question, then we can stop.
Yes, Sheila. Wei Cheng, you can ask questions now.
Sheila,
Yes.
there's a question from the public about whether the 5 omnipresent mental factor they appear at the same time. Can you? Okay, my question is, this 5 omnipresent mental factor, does it also exist in the Buddha ground?
Oh yes, definitely yes. Within the, actually there's a 51 or 53, 56, there's a different number of the mental factors. Within the 51 or 53 or 56, the one we name omnipresent mental factors. Omnipresent mental factor. That means the mental factor goes with any kinds of minds. Negative minds, positive minds, Buddha's mind. Therefore, the mental factors go with all the minds. Therefore, omnipresent mental factors. What are they? Feeling, discrimination, intention, mental engagement, and contact. Feeling, discrimination, intention, mental engagement, and contact. So, dushe, semba, repa, ilachepa. Yeah. Those are the 5 omnipresent mental factors. So, any kinds of minds must have these 5 mental factors. When there's a mind, there's a feeling. There's a mind, the mind always discriminate, differentiate. There's intention. Then there's a mind, then mental engagement. So, dushe, semba, repa, ilach. Yeah, mental engagement means they always think something. Therefore, yes, the 5 omnipresent mental factor also exists in the Buddhahood, within the Buddha minds. Yes. Okay, so we can stop today here, the revision class.
Thank you, Sheila.
And all of you, so thank you so much for attending the revision class. And next, still we have 2 days teachings. If you are very busy, super busy, still you can use your earphone and listen the teachings. Reason number 1, it is very, very, very rare opportunity to receiving teaching from His Holiness Dalai Lama. Right now he's almost 86 years old. But we are very lucky, he's physically, mentally is very healthy, particularly physically very healthy. In the future, I don't think we have a quite often opportunity to receive teachings from him. Receiving teaching from him is very unique. All the teaching he gives, anytime, anywhere, is based on his own experience. bodhicitta, he practiced for more than 60, 70 years. Emptiness, more than almost 60, 70 years, almost more than 60 years. We are receiving teaching based on experience teaching. Second, when you listen his teaching, his voice, it gives a lot of peace and happiness. Reason number three, when he gives teachings, when he gives teaching, he teaches everything. Sutrayana, Vajrayana, modern science. Then, Prajana, all the 5 thetis, he put all together very simple way. So I ask all of you to continuously attend any kinds of teaching given by His Holiness Dalai Lama. Reason number 1 is a very rare opportunity. Reason number 2, when you listen teaching from him, when you watch his face, it gives you a lot of peace and happiness, give you a lot of aspiration, give you a lot of commitments. Third, he reminds you remember all the teaching because he teach so many topics in a very simple way in a short time. Okay, so thank you so much and take care. Be safe.